Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well, and thank you for tuning in to Moose Motion. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed my content, comment what you think below, share with your friends, and subscribe if you're new. Anyway, let's dive into this quite car project. During this episode of the 1966 Polara Wagon project, we'll basically be putting the wheels together as well as making them spin. Now, this is definitely not a very easy task, being that the car is pretty much 90% clay, and well, it's generally not supposed to work that way, but I'll make it work anyway. This obviously isn't my first time doing this, given that I have 25 years of sculpting experience. Well, actually, probably more than that. Yeah, I'm kind of an old fart, unfortunately, at this point, I'll admit. Anyway, what we're going to do for the front end this time is going to be a bit different, though, however, in comparison to my other cars. Generally, what I've done is just modified some, well, parts from different car kits to make the steering components work, and then combined it with, well, oven-baked clay, generally kind of mixing it in there to help fill in the gaps and make things the appropriate size they need to be for the car. However, this time we're going to try a different approach. We're going to basically custom modify some Lego pieces, which for the most part is pretty much the same stuff that the model car kits use a lot of the time. The only real difference is they are quite a lot bulkier, so we're going to have to work those down quite a bit, like we're working the wheels down and various other things to make them all work together. It's by no means an easy task, because you're basically combining a bunch of things that were never meant to be together and making them do something. But personally, that is why I really enjoy this, and I think it's really cool, and I hope you enjoy it as well. And if you do, you can show your appreciation by just taking a few seconds and smashing that like button, commenting what you think of the project below, sharing with your friends, and perhaps subscribing if you're new. And if you're just tuning in to the series, be sure to check out the video's description. There you will find links to the other parts of the series below. Now, at some point during this video, we will be going over to my garage, mainly because that is where my vice is. Now, I do apologize, the lighting will change a little bit there. It's nowhere nearly as nicely set up as my mini art office. I generally don't do a whole lot of filming in there. However, if anyone is curious at some point and would like to actually see perhaps my real project cars, the big ones, not the tiny little clay ones, let me know in the comment section below, and if there's enough people demanding it, I will do a video on my actual cars. And as always, keep your eyes peeled for Milton the Moose, and if you're the first to spot him and timestamp correctly when he exactly shows up, you will have your comment pinned at the top of the comment section, as well as a shout out at my next how-to video or podcast. As well as some news on the drag race animation. I have some good news. I do actually have it pretty much all under wraps and will be posting it later this week. It did take a lot longer than expected, unfortunately. I definitely put a lot of work into it. I wanted to make sure that I gave that set that I worked on some justice, because that took almost a better part of a year, I would say, to make sure everything was built. So I really wanted to give it my all, and I appreciate you all for being very patient on it, and I will release it later this week. So be sure you have your post notifications turned on so you do not miss that, because yeah, that would be a little bit sad. It took me a lot of effort, and I definitely would like to show it to the world. At any rate, that's enough from me for now. I will be back momentarily, periodically throughout the video to help explain some of the steering components and mechanical things, just because that could be a little bit complicated just by a visual aspect and without any explanation. So I will be returning later on to help explain all that little mockery and doodad stuff. So yes, thank you for sticking around, and hopefully you enjoy the video. And I am back. So essentially what we're going to be doing for this front steering component is going to be a bit of reverse engineering from one of my older model Clark kits. As we just quickly take apart this little mini Saleen S7, I will show you exactly what I mean. As you can see, this is the front steering component for the Saleen here. And it bears some similarities to some Lego pieces that I was able to find. So essentially we're going to quickly go over those just so you're aware. These will be the little control arms, essentially. So that will be where your wheel basically turns. So it's that part. We're going to cut off the very end of it, just so it's a lot shorter and can fit in that very small scale model that I'm building. Now, this part here is a little bigger than it's going to be. Obviously, we're going to cut off those side parts because this is going to be essentially your wheel hub assembly. We're going to grind down that little piece right there so we can essentially glue this piece to the other part so it can steer, and then the wheel is able to turn freely once we drill a hole inside of it and attach this little bearing piece to it so it can spin around. It won't be exactly an easy task to pull off, but yeah, I think it should work out fairly well, and well, from future reference, I've actually already pulled it off, so yes, I do know it works. So be sure to stick around to the end to find out how it all goes together. Oh, and one other quick thing I kind of forgot to explain. Basically, you also probably notice there's a big plastic push rod on the Saline steering setup. I will be using something similar to that, except I'm going to use some small gauge armature wire due to it being much thinner, and will give us the clearance levels needed to make sure that little 440 plate engine fits in that engine bay as well and has enough room to idle around and all that stuff. So, obviously, earlier on in the video, I mentioned that we'll be heading into my garage, and this is the segment where we'll be doing that because the vise is in here, and, well, some of my other, perhaps more aggressive tools to kind of get this grinding and cleaning up done a lot faster than it would be with tiny little hand stuff. So, for the next little bit, we're going to hang out in here while we plane down and grind down all those little Lego components to essentially make our own custom wheel hub assembly, as well as cross-member. Also, a quick tip for anyone out there who is perhaps ruining / modifying your own little Lego pieces. Notice that the plastic that makes these things is rather delicate, so when you're putting things in the vise, you're going to want to put it in rather gently. Do not clamp it down, otherwise you're just going to basically squish the tiny Lego piece, so be very gentle with this part as well. Now, this is a part I would highly recommend you use a drill press for, not exactly a hand drill. Unfortunately, I'm a broke artist, so I do not have a drill press. I have a hand drill. It works, gets the job done, but you're just going to have to take a bit extra time on making sure everything is square and center, because, well, it's a wheel, and if it's not, it's going to be pretty damn obvious that it's not center, especially when you're dealing with something that's on 1/32 scale or smaller. And now we're done in the garage, so I figured it might be a good idea just to kind of go do a quick once-over once again with our modified LEGO pieces with the steering components that we're essentially going to be building. So obviously this is our little steering component. This is, what am I grabbing next? The wheel, obviously, duh. And as you can see, essentially it spins just on that little wheel hub assembly thing that we made that will eventually be glued on to our little steering component. And then obviously those two steering components will be glued together in the center to basically make the cross member for the car. So now what we're going to do is attach all those tiny little custom-made LEGO components together, glue them all accordingly so we can make our clay car's front wheels spin as well as turn. And while I'm still talking to you all, there's one thing I should probably do quickly, unfortunately, is kind of apologize for the unnormal scheduled post. Generally I try to do one per week or two, but this took a lot longer than expected, so I was unable to post it till later on today, essentially. Basically because, as far as I know, there's literally only 2 people in the world that do little clay car models like me, so hopefully I can encourage a few other people to get into this hobby. It's not exactly easy, but I'll admit, once you pull everything off, it is quite the rewarding experience seeing, well, a clay car that you basically turn as nothing into something that now can be pushed around and played with. It's actually a pretty cool result in the end, so it's worth sticking out. It is a lot of work and a lot of dedication, that's for sure, but hopefully I can teach a couple other people to put the game consoles down and get creative. Which, I must admit, there has been actually a few young, inspiring people that have actually started doing a little bit of claymation. We had one Spinosaurus replica that was done a while back, which was quite a rewarding experience, seeing a young man who made a replica Spinosaurus of mine. As well as there's a couple other ats on TikTok that have been tagged in with some stop motion cars. So basically some kids making little donuts and various other things. I will have to put my Celine S7 all back together for you later on so I can play around with it and do a little stop motion video for you. So thank you all for definitely getting involved with the hobby. It definitely makes me feel pretty encouraged to keep doing this up. It's a lot of work, but I like seeing other people's creativity. So if you're a creative, be sure to let me know and I will definitely go check your stuff out. Hello once again, my dear viewers, and thank you for sticking around to the very end of the video. As you can see, we got 4 wheels on our little clay car now. There's still some clearance issues, unfortunately. I'm going to have to carve out some fenders just a little bit more for some clearance, as well as probably on that little engine just a bit. The oil pan might be a bit too big, I'm thinking. However, it should all work in the end. Just let me pull out the cross member for you so you can get a little bit of a better, closer look, because this is what took all weekend to make, unfortunately, and set me back behind schedule slightly. However, it is now my own little custom, cross member part. So I'm going to have to probably stockpile a bunch of these just so that way I have them on hand for future car projects. Anyway, thank you for sticking around, and hopefully this encourages you to try and make some of your own little clay car projects. Anyway, you made it this far. Remember to like, comment, share with your friends, and subscribe if you're new. And if you're already a subscriber, just want you to know I highly appreciate your support. Anyway, that's enough from me. Till next time, take it easy.